WCNC Charlotte. This is Flashpoint, where power and politics collide and the tough questions get asked and answered.
Thanks for joining us here on Flashpoint. I'm Ben Thompson. Some shocking new data out this week shows pedestrian deaths are up 77% between 2010 and 2022. That's across the country. It's really a stunning statistic at a time when cars have more technology than ever before. And while data from the past year shows traffic-related deaths in North Carolina are slowly decreasing, experts say it's not happening fast enough. Joining us now is Mark Ezell. He's the director of the North Carolina Governor's Safety Program. Also with us, Ryan Murphy, a traffic safety engineer with the State Department of Transportation. Gentlemen, thank you both for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Mark, I'm going to start with you. What is behind this general rise in pedestrian deaths that we've been seeing?
Well, it's been significant across the country. North Carolina's experienced a significant issue with traffic, with pedestrian fatalities, and other states have as well, especially southern states. The good news is it's down in 2023 a bit from the all-time high in 2022, but it's still not where it should be. What's behind it? It's really multifactorial. There's a bit around vehicle technology. Our vehicles are getting heavier, and we're finding that of those pedestrian-related deaths, SUVs and trucks are involved in over half of those crashes. The way in which we design our roads and sidewalks and walkways and lighting is an issue. Motorist education clearly is an issue. We found statistically from this Governor's Highway Safety Association report that was released yesterday that on average, our autos are killing 20 pedestrians a day nationally. So clearly there's an issue there. And there's the need for significant more education. There's the need for design change, and there's the need for really a strong policy focus.
Gotcha. A lot to tackle right there. Mark, let me continue with you for just a second. You mentioned technology. I feel like technology seems to be making our cars safer, but that's not necessarily translating to pedestrian safety. Is that correct?
Well, the fact is our cars are in some respects getting safer, but there's still pieces of technology that we need to address. For instance, with electric motors, we're finding that those cars tend to be much heavier than previous cars because the motors themselves weigh a great deal. Also, we tend to have this need in the United States for very heavy, large, weighty cars, things that other countries don't seem to have the same affinity for. And so when you're hit by a very weighty car, clearly that's going to be more dangerous than being hit by a small one. Also, we see in other countries that there is technology utilized commonly that is basically a pedestrian detection system outside of the car that we don't utilize very much here in the United States, but is utilized in Europe, especially in some Nordic countries. So there are technology pieces that can potentially make a difference.
Brian, when we look at the future, we look at things like construction. What tools do roads and intersections need to keep these pedestrians safe?
Yeah, and we've done a lot of research in the last few years to really try to understand kind of the circumstances around pedestrian crashes. And so a couple of trends that stick out here. About 70% of these events happen in dark conditions. So lighting is very important when we start thinking about interventions in locations that have pedestrian crashes. About 3/4 of these happen outside of an intersection area. So that could be, people crossing in mid-block locations. It could be people walking kind of in the lanes. There about 50% happen when you are crossing the roadway. Obviously, that's certainly a situation when a non-motorist is most vulnerable when they're crossing the roadway and when you've got vehicles that are traveling at maybe higher speeds. And about 70% happen in locations where you've got the speed limits greater than 35 miles per hour. So speed plays a very important role when we start talking about the outcomes of these types of crashes. So the higher that the vehicle is going, when they impact a pedestrian or a bicycle, the greater the likelihood that a serious injury will result of that. And then about half of these occur on arterial type roads. So these would be your multi-lane roadways, often with higher speeds. And so from a pedestrian perspective, when you think about crossing those roadways, you have longer crossing distance so that the pedestrians are more exposed. So we've really those trends really kind of jump out when we look at the data, and they really help us to try to determine, where best we should focus our efforts from an intervention perspective.
So far you have outlined some of our actual vehicles are making things more dangerous for pedestrians. And then Ryan, you just outlined how some of our infrastructure is not ideal to keep some of our pedestrians safe. Mark, let me ask you this. The city of Charlotte and communities across North Carolina pushing what's called Vision Zero, and it's the idea of eliminating all traffic-related deaths and severe incidents. Is that is that a realistic goal for a city like Charlotte to achieve?
Oh, it's absolutely realistic. Let's face it, it's not going to happen overnight, but it's happened. We've seen it before. We've seen in other countries, especially some European countries that have adopted this Vision Zero model, that the number of traffic deaths have gone to zero in some countries or very close to that. So clearly it can happen in traffic safety. And in the United States, we've seen it happen successfully with jet passenger crashes. You think about it, 20, 25 years ago, it was not uncommon for us to read in the paper, back in the days when we had paper, or see on the news that there was a jet passenger crash that would occur every month or so with hundreds of people killed. As it happens, we have not had a jet passenger crash in the United States in over 15 years. That didn't happen by accident. It happened by putting together some of the same principles that govern the Vision Zero efforts, putting them into action with jet passenger safety. So clearly we can do it. It's just going to take a significant commitment, significant study, and it's going to take this local intervention like we've been doing through the Vision Zero efforts locally in Charlotte. We have 17 other cities and towns in North Carolina that have also adopted these Vision Zero principles, trying to address traffic deaths in their community in their own unique way. And so we think that that community intervention is going to potentially make a big difference.
Brian, when we talk about zero traffic deaths, is there anything local governments are not talking about?
Yeah, I think local government plays an important role in this. I think just the conversation around traffic safety, awareness of traffic safety issues is very important. And at a local perspective, you can often implement changes quicker. You can do things with enforcement, immediately. And interventions can often happen a lot quicker at the local level. So I think there's a big role for local government, for local communities to play in traffic safety efforts in general.
And I'd just add, Ben, that in local communities, a number of the things the Vision Zero communities are doing is pushing planning departments and land use policy as an important part of transportation safety. Let's face it, when you create a large apartment complex on one side of a big arterial road and a shopping center on another, and don't build that pedestrian infrastructure or plan for that, then it potentially can be very difficult. So bringing in other partners in city government that haven't traditionally thought of their role in transportation safety can make a big difference.
Mark, one final question I wanted to ask you. We have been involved in a back and forth between the city of Charlotte and Raleigh, state lawmakers, about a transit plan, a mobility plan. And there's a back and forth between what the city leaders want and what state lawmakers want here in Raleigh. How big of a role does public transportation play in reducing some of these deaths that we're talking about?
Well, the simple fact is that people get from place to place using a lot of different modes when those modes are available. Think about it. During a week, many of us, we're drivers at some point. We're pedestrians at some point. We may be bicyclists. And if we can do it, we will take public transportation and public transit. So I personally enjoy that. I think many folks in North Carolina do. And where that availability exist, people utilize that option when it's convenient, low cost, and safe for them. In other countries that have helped address this problem, public transit played a major role.
Here's hoping our political leaders are listening. All right, Mark Ezell, as well as Brian Murphy. Gentlemen, thank you both for coming on. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next, right here on Flashpoint, the North Carolina General Assembly overriding several of the governor's vetoes, why voter rights groups are sounding the alarm.